Welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is going to be all things Phoenix Squad. I've had a huge request over probably the last 6 months almost as to a whole bunch of things about Phoenix, from how to mod them, which abilities should you level up, which characters is it, should you bring Sabine, should you bring Chopper? I think that's a debate that will rage on probably forever. I think everybody has their preferences and reasons. We're going to discuss all of that in this video. This is going to be a go-to video you'll be able to share with anybody. It's going to be, of course, Warrior's opinion. It is what I believe to be best for the full gamut. We're going to go over from the free-to-play perspective and how you would mod from free-to-play and or a beginner player who's just barely reaching, level 50 and 60. We're also going to go off of the best case scenario modding and why we would mod those, plus the abilities if you're looking at trying to get the best bang for your buck out of your Omegas. Now, this team, the Phoenix Squad, is a team that I only use during PvE being player versus environment, maybe Galactic War or territory battles, but places like that, I do not use them in arena. However, everyone watching this video who is not in the ultra meta top 20 is probably seeing these teams, especially any of the newer leaderboards. Most of the new leaderboards have a ton of Mother Talzin and Phoenix Squad floating all over. I know because I get people snapshotting their leaderboard and sending it to me, and there are a ton of those teams out there in the top 200, top 500. So while they are a PvP viable team, especially on the earlier leaderboards, it's not a way that I use them. So really quick disclaimer, my team is not modded correctly. What we are going to go off of is what you should do, not what I have done. So when you look at these characters and you see the modding, you're going to have to basically ignore it and just listen to what I'm saying. I'll put some graphics on the screen so you can see exactly how to mod. Let's get right into it. So the first thing is, who should you bring in, right? Everybody wants to debate that. Whether, do you drop Chopper? Do you drop Sabine? And it depends on the purpose of your team. If your team is player versus player in arena, you're going to want to use Sabine over Chopper. She's a harder farm to get, but she's overall worth it. She's the second best overall damage dealer on the team for the most part. I know that Zeb now with his newest Zeta can do a phenomenal amount of damage, but overall, before you get your Zetas, you're going to be looking at Sabine being basically the second highest damage dealer until you get to that extremely high level. So with that said, if you're player versus player, you go Sabine. Now, if you're player versus environment, we're talking territory battles, Galactic War, light side nodes, hard nodes, things like that. Chopper is going to be the way to go. Not only is he pretty much the easiest farm in the entire group, but he is a phenomenal tank. He's going to help with health regeneration at the beginning of each of their turns, and then he's also going to be able to give 15% protection up when attacked and some other cool things. But the cool thing about the Phoenix is that they share all of their unique abilities, and that comes from Hera Syndulla, the leader. Her leadership says each active Phoenix ally grants their unique abilities to all the other Phoenix allies. In addition, whenever they use a special ability, they're going to gain turn meter if Hera is active. So if she dies, they're going to lose the 20% turn meter portion. However, they are going to keep the entire leadership ability of sharing uniques regardless of whether she stays in the fight or not. Even if she's killed early on, the unique ability the unique sharing ability is going to continue or persist through that. Now I'm going to break this team up into two basic groups, the attacker group and the tank group. Basically, Hera Syndulla, Ezra Bridger, and Sabine Wren are attackers and should be treated as such. You need as many damage dealers as possible. And Zeb, Chopper, and Kanan are all tanks and should be treated as such. So we're going to go ahead and go in through and talk about the attackers first. For Ezra, Hera, and Sabine, I would treat them like attackers. And the way you would do that is if you have all the mods available to you, you would use a critical damage set and a critical chance set. Critical damage is plus 30%. It gives you, you have to have 4 of them and then 2 of them for the critical chance. And then to the left, all 3 of them, I would put protection. On this data bus, the bottom left circle, I would put protection. And then on the right side for all 3, I would have speed in this receiver. A lot of people call it the arrow. In the hollow array or the triangle, I would have critical damage. And on the bottom right, you've got a couple of options, either using offense, which I highly recommend as the primary stat, using offense. Or if you want to make them a little more durable, you can add protection. But again, these are your damage dealers, and so my suggestion is offense if you can get it. Now, the offense plus is harder to drop. So let's go ahead and start talking about players who are just starting to mod. They're maybe level 50 or 60, and they just barely have the mods unlocked, and they're wondering, what do? I don't have critical damage mods. I don't have critical chance mods. I don't even know. All I've got is like maybe the health mods. So what you're going to want to do is get the highest level health mods possible, 5 dot. You should be able to get those relatively soon because health you can take in any team. And so you should be able to take your arena team in and unlock the 5 dot farming. Now, farming takes forever. We all know that. My suggestion for farming mods is do it on the weekends and then farm for characters on the weekdays. That way you're always every week farming a couple of days straight for mods. You cannot let mods fall to the wayside. They are critically important. Now, if you decide to go all health on all these characters because you just don't have access to the right mods, that is okay. In fact, it actually plays to the strengths of this team. If you have all health on your characters, you can still mod them with great primaries, and the health bonuses, once you have 3 of them, will be 15% bonus health, which is going to raise their overall health. And that plays into the team because Chopper has 15% health regeneration at the beginning of the turn, which he shares with the whole team. Kanan, anytime anyone's debuffed, they gain 25% of their health pool, and Zeb gains bonus protection equal to 40% of their health pool. So the larger the health pool, the larger their bonus protection is going to be. Also, the 25% health will be greater if they are debuffed, if they have a greater health pool. So health mods are not a bad way to go. In fact, if you're free to play, that would be the way I would keep it for a very long time and not stress at all. But keeping in mind, Hera, Sabine, and Ezra, best case scenario, a crit damage, crit chance set with speed on the arrow, critical damage, and offense or protection, whichever you can get your hands on, preferably offense. Now, when we go to the other 3, the tanks, we're going to talk they're going to be a little bit differently. Zeb is a debuffer, and Kanan has some debuffing capability as well. So the 2 of them are going to be similar, but they're slightly different. With Zeb, I would go all potency. The reason is he is your massive debuffer in the whole entire team. He's really who brings all of the great debuffs, and so you absolutely need him to apply the debuffs. And you're going to be going against a lot of characters that are naturally tenacious the way that they've built them in the game. So you're going to want to get his potency up, preferably over 65%. If you can get it even higher, that's even better. So I would recommend 3 potency sets. Again, if you're free to play and or you're new and you just don't have access to potency mods yet, you will want to obviously work on that. However, you can use health mod sets, and then you would apply a potency primary on this plus, on this multiplexer. You'd want to put potency on this bottom right. As far as the rest, you're going to want to have protection on this circle. You're going to want to have protection on this triangle and protection on this arrow. Now, if you don't have access to protection for these 3 other slots, you can use defense. Defense is going to raise the overall armor rate, which compresses the amount of damage they actually take. So defense would be the backup suggestion if you don't have access to any protection, although the protection should drop relatively often. So protection is your first and foremost. And then also, if you don't have access to any protection, or let's say this bottom left circle, you have one that has a health primary, that would be okay as well. Health is a kind of a third runner-up because they have that all those abilities of regenerating health. Having as much health as possible on these characters is not a bad thing. I just default to the protection because when he regenerates that bonus protection and then he also recovers 15% protection, that recovery of 15% protection will be based on his total protection pool. So the more protection, the more regeneration is going to happen. Again, for Kanan, I do suggest very similarly to Zeb that you're basically going to go with potency. I would probably do 3 potency sets, but again, if you're free to play or new and you can't get to potency yet, you could use health mod sets. That's okay. And then of course you're going to want to use a lot of protection on the arrow. You're going to want to use protection on the primary hollow array, and you're going to want protection on the data bus. Again, as a backup, if you don't have protection, you could use a defense primary. Again, that's going to raise the overall armor rate of the character, which is going to reduce the amount of overall damage they take each time they're hit. That's not a bad backup. And you also could use health if you don't have access to protection, primaries, or defense. But again, you're going to want to try and build up their protection as much as possible, because with Zeb's unique, they're going to recover 15% of their protection pool. So the bigger the protection pool, the bigger that's going to be. Again, if you put on all health mods, that's fine. I would still just worry about putting on protection again on this receiver, on this hollow array, on this data bus. And as far as the multiplexer, you could either do potency like Zeb, or you could do protection to give it a little bit more. Remembering that my modding that you're looking at here is not correct. And the last character would be Chopper. Again, if you're doing PvE, I would use Chopper. If you're doing PvP, I would use Sabine. With Chopper, you are going to want to do probably health mods. That's what I would probably recommend. You could also do defense mods. So you see I have 1 health set and 1 defense set. That's okay. I would highly recommend doing a couple defense sets or all health sets, but health sets are really the way to go because of all of the health regenerative abilities of this team. Just trying to get it up as high as possible. Again, just like the other tanks, you're going to want on this receiver to have protection. You're going to want to have on the hollow array protection. You're going to want to have on the multiplexer protection. And you're going to want to have on the data bus protection. Now, if you don't have protection, you can use defense stats. You can also use health primary stats if you don't have access to the protection. Again, you're going to want to build that protection pool up high because he does taunt. He's a taunting tank, and so he is going to take a lot of damage, and the more protection he has when he has that protection regeneration through Zeb, it's going to be a greater percentage. It's always 15%, but obviously 15% of 20,000 is better than 15% of 15,000. So you want to get that protection pool up as high as possible. So now we know basically if you're free to play or you're new, you can do health sets across the board. And you know that 3 of them, you're going to want to do speed and critical damage and offense. And the other 3 tanks, you're going to really just want to load up on protection if possible, if not health or defense. So modding is pretty simple with these characters, pretty straightforward. We also talked about which composition you would want to use for PvP. You're going to want to bring Sabine in and drop Chopper. And for PvE, which is player versus environment, you'd bring Chopper in and drop Sabine. The last thing I want to go over is going to be the abilities. Which abilities do you have to or should you Omega? Because Omega material is very difficult to get your hands on. And so is it really worth doing all of those Omegas and whatnot? Now, if you're going to go all in on the team, I would suggest doing absolutely every single ability. But if you're looking to do what I did, which is just get through, territory battles, then I'm going to suggest the ones that are most critical. So we're just going to go down the line. As far as Ezra, the absolute minimum would be to Omega his unique. And then I would also suggest, since he is your highest damage dealer, to possibly consider doing his rushing strike and watch and learn. But at a minimum, you're going to want to do his unique since it is shared throughout the whole team. For Zeb, again, the unique, because it's shared throughout the whole team, you want to Omega Shrug off. Also, I would suggest, because he is your highest potency individual that's applying a bunch of debuffs, you're going to want to possibly consider Bash and Honor Guard because of what it does with the additional plus 10% protection regeneration. That will obviously apply to the others. As far as Chopper, I would just take care of his unique, and Metal Menace automatically gets maxed out when you take it. You do not have to use Omegas at all. So there's no Omegas on Chopper right now except for his unique. As far as Hera Syndulla, the only one I suggest is really the leadership ability. Because she's your leader, I would max that leadership ability out. The rest I do not see as absolutely necessary. For Kanan, I would recommend the unique of Clear Mind. The rest I do not recommend that you absolutely have to. However, Intervene, getting a cooldown from 4 to 3 is pretty good, so you may want to consider maxing Intervene out. And lastly, Sabine, I would again recommend the unique, so that way she can share that ability maxed out. The rest I don't think are absolutely necessary, which is why I have not done them. So all in all, Hera's leadership and all of their uniques. And then if you feel like those characters are characters you're going to use in other teams, such as Zeb or Ezra, which I do use them in other mixed composition teams, you may want to take some of the other abilities up that are Omegas. Otherwise, just their uniques and Hera's leadership. So I hope this video kind of clears things up on what you should be doing, who you should be bringing in, how you should be modding, and you can refer back to it in the future. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments down below. Side note, if you're wondering where my roster reviews are going, in a couple of weeks they will be on my new channel, Warriors Roster Reviews. And of course, if you want to see them, you're going to have to go to my new channel and subscribe. That's going to start in a couple of weeks. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.